This is Mark Gaughan of the Buffalo News, early Friday morning from One Bills Drive, and we are going to break down the Bills' selection of Dalton Kincaid in the first round of the NFL Draft. The Buffalo Bills picked a tight end in the first round of the NFL Draft in a bit of a surprise, but if you look at it a little closer, it is actually not quite as big a surprise as it seems. Tight end. Okay, they already have a starting tight end in Dawson Knox, who they invested a huge amount of money in at the start of last year. So why 25 overall take Utah's Dalton Kincaid? Everybody was expecting the Bills. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people recognize the fact the Bills need help in the slot. They need a new slot receiver. Isaiah McKenzie was not the answer last year. So what do you do about that? Well, the reality is Dalton Kincaid is called a tight end, but he is really a slot receiver. The Bills' tight ends, ever since Sean McDermott arrived in 2017, they have only acquired Y tight ends attached to the line of scrimmage, tight ends who both block and catch passes. If you're a tight end who can't block at all, you don't have a spot on the Bills' offensive profile since Sean McDermott arrived until tonight. That changed. So the good news is for the Bills fans that it was painfully obvious last year that the Bills offense needed more juice. It needed an easy button. Josh Allen, it was too difficult. The targets in the middle of the field were a problem. I say the good news for Bills fans is this pick says that Brandon Beane saw what you saw and he recognized it as just as much of a problem. So instead of picking a small wide receiver as their slot guy, with none of those available on the board, he went with a big tight end as their slot guy. Dalton Kincaid is not going to be a blocker like Dawson Knox. He is not going. They're not going to. Every once in a while, Dawson Knox has to block a defensive end. It's not happening with Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is a big slot receiver, and Brandon Beane, a couple of times in his post-selection news conference with the media tonight, used the phrase middle of the field. I mean, it was just obvious in the Miami win in the wild card round. Josh had to do too many heroic things. Miami blitzed like crazy, and there weren't easy throws, security blanket throws over to the middle of the field. Then Cincinnati, which has a better defense than Miami, really exposed the Bills in the divisional round. So the Bills need more of an easy option for Josh. The design, the plan is that Kincaid helps Josh be that option. All right, Dalton Kincaid, let's talk a little bit about his strengths as a player. He is almost 6'4", 6'3", and 5/8 to be exact. He's 246 pounds. As we established, he's a slot tight end. He spent the first 2 years of his college career at San Diego, not San Diego State, San Diego, transferred to Utah. And then in 2022, he had 30 passes in 2021, 2022 just broke out for Utah. 70 catches, 890 yards, 8 touchdowns. His huge kind of put him on the map game was against Southern California. He had 16 catches on 16 targets for like 225 yards against a top foe. So that was pretty impressive. He is, I wouldn't say he is the speediest tight end. We don't know exactly what his 40 time is because he had a slight back injury. Didn't work out at the NFL scouting combine or at his pro day. So we don't know what his 40 time is. But he is not your typical Bills not counting Dawson Knox, who is a good downfield guy. But he's not a catch it and fall down guy. He might not blow by defensive backs, but he has some good balance. He had 8 catches for 25 plus yards last season. And according to Pro Football Focus, he was third among all tight ends in the nation in missed tackles forced with 16 for the season. So he can get you some yards after the catch. The Bills had some problems. The Bills face good slot cornerbacks. Cincinnati has a great slot cornerback in Mike Hilton. The Jets have a great slot cornerback. Miami has upgraded their defense, and little slot receivers, unless you're an elite slot receiver, the little slot receivers had a hard time getting open. The idea here with Kincaid is that, even if Mike Hilton of the Bengals is close to him, Mike Hilton's a lot smaller than Kincaid, and Kincaid will, be able to make catches over the middle of the field. So that would be a big plus for the Bills. He's got great hands. One of his big proponents is NFL Network analyst Daniel Jeremiah, who's a former scout with the Ravens. We talked to him last week on a national conference call. Jeremiah had Kincaid as his top tight end in the class and the 9th overall player on his board. He said off the line, he is awesome at his top of his roots. He can separate. He has great hands. He's competitive after the catch. He can make you miss. I think he's one of the best players in this draft. And I was told physically from teams that he came out fine in his medical reports. So he has proponents, and like I said, the Bills are good. This is a little bit of a departure in scheme and philosophy, a little bit. But because he's more of a slot receiver, he should be able to get on the field a decent amount. Okay, in our last segment here, let's talk a little bit about a concern here in terms of how much is this guy going to really be able to get on the field as a first-round pick. So the Bills have been one of the top 11 personnel teams in the league. That means 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. Bills, Kansas City have led the league, been at the top of the league the last 3 years, really, in 11 personnel, 3 wides. That's their MO. That's how they roll. And the Bills have played 12 personnel, 2 tight end set, one of the lowest in the league. And for good reason. They didn't have a second tight end who was a difference maker. So the Bills only used the 2 tight end personnel 4% of the plays last year, according to the Buffalo News charting. The league average was 18.6%. Okay, now we've already established before that Kincaid is not just, he's a quasi, he's a hybrid tight end. He's more of a slot receiver. But still, on 3rd and 9, on 3rd and 8, you're probably going to want 11 personnel on the field. You're probably going to want 3 wide receivers. How much are you really going to play Knox and Kincaid together on obvious 3rd down passing situations? That's going to be something to watch. So, a concern here is, did they just draft a guy in the 1st round who, good case scenario, is going to wind up playing 30% of the plays, not just as a rookie, next year, in his 2nd year, or in his 3rd year? Or is he going to be so good? Is he going to be everything they think and hope and dream he will be, and he, can play 40% of the plays? So that's the risk here, is they're drafting a guy who might only play 25% of the plays. Just how outstanding does he develop into in the slot? It'll be very interesting to see over the next 2 years. Now, the Bills still are in a position, I think, could take a slot receiver with another pick in this draft. There's still going to be some good, some capable slot receivers available. And I still think they should take one because right now their slot receiver is Deontay Hardy, who is, let's call him a better, more dynamic Isaiah McKenzie, hopefully. Although Hardy's career high for catches is 36. McKenzie caught 42 last year. So I still think and then they have Khalil Shakir who could play in the slot, but I'd like to see another option. They need another player at receiver. I expect them to draft a receiver before the draft is over, just to be another contender in the slot. So bottom line, it is an outside the box pick. It does fill the need a lot of people wanted in the slot. The Bills did address this weapons gap that they have with the Bengals and Kansas City. So that is potentially good if it works. But it is an interesting outside the box pick, and he needs to be everything they expect to make this first round pick worthwhile. That's the story tonight from One Bills Drive. Check back with us at the Buffalo News and the PlayAction podcast. Next week, we'll be back with Catherine Fitzgerald to help wrap up the Bills draft.